Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Clayton Smith. I'm an associate professor at the University of Windsor, and I will be your instructor in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies, part of the joint PhD program. It's my custom to do a little welcome video so that we'll get a chance to kind of connect, albeit in a distant kind of a way. And also an opportunity at the end of this, I'll ask you to introduce yourself to each other. So let me start by just talking a little bit about me. So my name is Dr. Clayton Smith. Uh, that's true. Other students kind of refer to me as Dr. Smith, uh, but you need to know that I spent a number of years as the Dean of Students here at the University of Windsor, and I'm quite comfortable with you getting to know me on a first name basis. Lancer Clayton happens to be my Twitter handle, uh, but I like the notion of getting to know you on that very personal level. That's the notion of graduate education, and I certainly want to attend to that. I am a bit of a gardener, a hobby gardener, I suppose. And so in my home, there's lots of flowers. There's lots of things growing all the time. I share that with you. I'm also a bit of a nature buff. And here is an example of a picture I took when I was in Maine, not far from my parents' cottage. And it's a birch tree in the distance you see there, but it's actually a reflection of that birch tree in the water, which makes me kind of think about how things connect and how we connect with each other. Uh, Here are some shots of some national parks. The Canadian Rockies, Lake Louise is there in the upper left, and down below Point Pelee, which is not far from where I live in Windsor, Ontario. And what's fascinating about it is that most people go to Point Pelee because it's a place for beaches and summer kinds of aquatic experiences. But in this case, it was winter. It was January, and the lake had frozen, and this artwork of nature came out, and I thought I share that with you. I was the Vice Provost International here at the University of Windsor for a number of years, and so here are a couple of shots from that time. On the left, you have the Mexican pyramids. I was visiting there, Mexico City, for an educational fair at the time. And then on the right, a colleague here from the University of Windsor who eventually went back home to his home in Japan, and I share that with you as well. This is a shot of where the Winter Olympics were in Japan one year. I've worked at a lot of different places. I've studied at some more. I've consulted at bunches more. I share this with you so that you can gain a sense of perspective. That what I bring to the table is this notion of wide set of educational, higher educational experiences uh, in US and Canada and in consulting around the world. Here are some sampling of what some of them are, and there's always more to come. Plan A, B, C, and D. Unlike perhaps some of your professors, I didn't actually start out wanting to be a professor. I was an associate or assistant, should I say, to UN Secretary General. Was working on his memoirs. I worked in the United States Senate for a U.S. senator. I was a town manager in my home state of Maine. And then along the way, I entered higher education and but did it on more of the entrepreneurial enrollment side, and then eventually concluded my work there as Dean of Students here at the University of Windsor, which led me to return to teaching a few years back. Professor defined is kind of an interesting slide. Professor would be, the Latin of that would be the person who professes, being usually an expert in art, science, teacher of the highest rank. And I think that that's something that I espouse to be. One that professes, avows, or declares. That is a person who says things as they are and expects other people to grab them. Maybe not so much. So here's a shot that I think about is that the standard professor on the left there and all of you on the right, but that's also not how I see things. This is how I see things. I believe in individual student learning, that professors are here to help, to support, to encourage students to get to the greatest potential of their own individual student learning. I remember as a graduate student myself, as a doctoral student, and the greatest sense of self-satisfaction came when I concluded that process and I realized that I really reached the epic of what I could be. And that was a great sense of satisfaction for me. Pursuit of knowledge, of course, is important to grad students and certainly to doctoral students. We need to always be about creating new knowledge, self-improvement. We need each of us to think about how we're improving cognitively, socially, through networking, through all of the different ways that graduate education enriches us. And then lastly, we need to think about respecting ourselves and others. And I would ask you to take care of your health, your personal health, your mental health, your spiritual health, and that you learn to and espouse respecting for each other. Be you coming from different places, different times of life, different cultures, different nationalities, different races, lots of differences amongst us. What we need to do is respect each other, and in doing so, we can benefit the best way we can from the graduate educational experience. Let me talk a little bit about research because I think that's important to being a professor. And so here's a research story. Some years ago, in this case it was about 2011, GA, Tanya Demjanenko, and I engaged in a research project to take a look at what the gap was between international student and domestic student retention and what the reasons for that were, and essentially what the barriers were for the international students not having the same or perhaps even higher retention that Canadians are having. That led us to 13 conference presentations, and these are those in Canada, in the US, in Ireland, scattered places around the world. Led to 3 book chapters, a couple of articles and posters. And it also led me to believe that it's important for me to engage international students in research. And so I have been for many years inviting them to join me on research projects in which I teach them how to do research. So always looking for students to join us in that project. You don't have to be an international student. Here are some current research projects I'm engaged in. The first one towards an open classroom. That's about the effectiveness of open educational resources on student affordability and interdisciplinarity. The idea here is if we can bring in customized and free resources to graduate students, wouldn't we in fact be enhancing student learning? The next project is about strategic enrollment management. It's the way in which universities and colleges pull together staff, faculty, students, community members, alumni to strategically focus their institution so that they achieve the kind of enrollment that makes sense for that institution. The third project here is about North Indian international student perspectives on cultural insensitivity in a post-secondary landscape. I'm working with an undergraduate, as it turns out, here, who is concerned that cultural insensitivity may be playing out in post-secondary educational institutions, so very important. And then lastly, this notion of connecting the best ways to teach online linguistically and culturally diverse international students with their satisfaction and their perception of student learning. The idea here is where that connection occurs is where perhaps the best teaching can happen. This is my faculty website. You're welcome to it. On the left, you see research, service, and teaching, the kinds of things that we've been talking about here. And on the right, student support, research links. Some of this may be of some value to you. I am a huge fan of supporting international, the educational journey of students. And so you'll see I have an office, I have virtual office hours, I have an email. I'm about you. And so if I can help you along the way, don't hesitate. I'm here for you. Next, I'd like to ask you to make an initial posting to introduce yourself and your research interest to your colleagues and to me, so that we can all get to know each other a little bit better. And then lastly, let me just wish you a wonderful educational leadership and policy journey. Uh, I hope to learn lots of things about you and the wonderful things that you're doing. I hope we can have some great conversations asynchronously through the learning management system, but also synchronously from time to time. And we'll talk about how to do that. So I'll stop there. Wish you all the best. Have a great day, everyone.